So what's actually happening then?
Well, they're attempting to take this tree out this morning, the cherry tree. I believe it's to create a line of cherry trees, but there is an alternative plan of putting the new cherry trees in, letting them grow, and then taking these ones out further down the line.
But why do they need to be taken out? They look perfectly healthy.
They do look
trees
perfectly healthy, yes. And I understand they did have to take some trees out because they weren't healthy. But really, we want to stop and have a rethink about what's happening to these trees.
So there's been a conversation about planting new cherry trees.
They were in the plans. They do have plans to plant more trees than they've taken out. But it still doesn't sit right taking out what seems to be perfectly healthy trees.
Yes.
Before the new trees go in. So I think there just needs to be a stop and a think, because there are an awful lot of locals that are pretty upset about the taking out of trees.
So what do we think of this then?
Well, I think one of the most startling things that's happened today is that the ward councillor has turned up and asked them to desist the tree cutting whilst further talks were undertaken. One tree, as you can see, is already gone. And there's another perfectly healthy tree that it was earmarked. And after the ward councillor had asked the tree surgeons to desist to allow further talks to take place, they did that. Which I think is not particularly good behaviour for the agents of a council.
So, you're telling me that they started that cut because they were cutting that tree down, or they started that cut to annoy people?
They did it as an act of disobedience.
It would be dangerous to cut the tree down without removing the branches first.
He knows that.
I was called in as a ward councillor, so I am quite upset that that tree actually was cut while the ward councillor asked him to stop cutting the trees. I think according to the plan, it was that they were going to plant the new cherry trees, and once they're overgrown, then they might need to take some of them down. But I don't see why they're doing it at this minute and time. And this is our, community garden and park for our nature habitat. And as the climate change, emergency taking place at the moment, I think this is really wrong idea to take the trees down. I think I'm very upset about it, and let's hope we can do something about it.
You would think kind of the trees are the asset of this park. Yeah, so I came out this morning because I'm really shocked that they're cutting down these trees that are perfectly healthy, and trees are the asset of this park,
Yes.
So I think keep whatever you can keep and add to it, but don't take trees down unnecessarily.
Yes, it doesn't. I mean, because what I understand is that the path is coming up and they're going to do a new path. But
Yeah,
you would have thought that even with new planting, the path wouldn't have to require the trees coming down.
I would have thought so. I mean, a path is a movable field,
Yes.
isn't it, I think?
Well, the plan is, because they haven't done it yet, so they
Yes,
can change the plan.
Exactly. No, absolutely. I think that the plan could be changed. And also there is an alternative plan of adding to those trees, and maybe at some point having those trees replaced with fresher trees. I don't know. I mean, I still don't quite get that one, but at least there was an alternative.
Yeah.
And I think it needs talking about before this continues.
Yeah. Do you have an involvement with, say, the Friends of Ellington Park? Or?
No, not at all. I mean, we are relatively new here, but I am someone who really loves trees and nature, and there aren't many trees in Thanet.
No.
It's quite shocking when you come from another part of the country,
Yes.
how few trees there are, and they really should be looked after.
Under a climate emergency, we all know the pains that are suffered if old trees are removed. They're a carbon sponge which goes. New trees planted won't reach maturity, well, to be quite honest, until the planet's underwater or burning. These trees are 50, 60, 70 years old. The new ones that are going in will be subject to vandalism. As somebody who stands for street trees for Ramsgate, these trees are under our care.
Yes.
We're here to protect them, and this is why we're here today. The police don't seem to like it very much, and neither do the councillors, obviously, but we need to talk about it.
Come on.
The tree officer's plans was to plant trees in between the bigger trees and let the smaller trees grow to fruition.
Right.
With the protection of the bigger trees here. But unfortunately, that's not the way they're working.
These were all perfectly healthy trees, so at least, yeah, I think so. They're at least 50 years old. They'd live for at least another 50.
They're not in the way of a building anyway. They're not in the way of a building, are they?
And look at that one. It's got buds all over it. It's going to be ready to flower this spring. It will look absolutely beautiful.
Count the rings.
And they're cutting it down for no good reason.
With potentially ourselves acting as mediators to see if we can find some nature of compromise that will be best for everybody. All that we ask you in the meantime is that whilst I appreciate you've got some people saying that tree is perfectly safe, in the meantime please stay away from it obviously, because there is a risk. It has been cut. We cannot guarantee that it will be safe to be near it.
There was consultation, I think it was a number of years back, so pre the climate emergency declaration.
Right.
So yeah, and there was full consultation online. Ellington Park they came out, that they consulted with people in the park. I think they even came to one of the Addington Street Revival fairs. So there was full consultation. But we've moved to a different place in our thoughts and our heads. And I've tried desperately to defend the taking down of the trees so far, because they did represent a saving of the park for next generations. But an alternative has been proposed for this line of cherry trees. And that involves not taking out the cherry trees, but planting the new cherry trees in and coming back at a further date once those new ones are established. Because otherwise we're going to be left with very few cherry trees. So I think now it's time to action that compromise, and I think it's a very sensible compromise.
Really?
I think overall the plans safeguard the future of the park. And that's a key thing,
Right.
and it will mean that there are. I know some people don't like the idea of a cafe being in there, but I think the cafe will help improve facilities for people using the park. So I think it's a very positive thing that the cafe's there. The improvements of the bandstand are amazing. That's a historical context, but I think we're overlooking some of the environmental issues. And it's not just, you're not just taking out a tree. That tree provides a habitat for other things, and I think we have a complete different change in our thinking over the last few years that maybe has moved beyond the original regional consultation and planning process. And we need to move with the times. I mean, that tree over there looks dead, but you can clearly see there are animals living in it, on it and around it. We've got to, it's like David Attenborough says, until we change the way we feel and the way we value trees, hedgerows and grass, then really we're stuffed as a human race, because it's just a tree. Let's just take it down. It's not just a tree. It's an important part of a whole ecological system that supports various organisms and animals.
Obviously, I was here in a mediatory role, which here to keep faith, essentially.
You can't arm wrestle, you can't touch.
Of course not. Does that sound fair?
Mike, we need a compromise here.
So what we've said we're going to do today, councillor, is work has started in that tree. So that tree is going to...
Okay, but can you listen to the compromise? Because I think there has been a compromise on the table that's been ignored by TDC. So I fully accept that maybe that tree's got to come out. But what we would like is there's a huge uproar of people locally not wanting these trees down. And I've tried to support it as a councillor because I understand. I was part of that consultation. I wasn't elected at that point. I made comments on that consultation, both online and on the physical, when they did it out in the open. I invited them to the Addington Street Revival Fair, so I know there's been a full process of consultation. Yeah. What I also know is there's had to be some adaptation, so I was part of when I first got elected, of saving that whole habitat up there by that house as well. So I know compromises can be achieved if both parties are willing to move things, to think differently. Okay. So we now have declared, I listen to you and I listen to Bobby, so please listen to me. So we now have a situation where that tree was cut into this morning, okay? It was going to affect all of us when that tree is cut down, but we're prepared to sacrifice that one tree if TDC will stop all further felling until there has been the two ward councillors that were here this morning, plus street trees for Ramsgate, sit down with Thanet with TDC and try and find a compromise, particularly for these cherry trees. Because I understand the compromise was put on the table, which was around planting the saplings, allowing those saplings to take hold and grow, and then making a decision about the cherry trees, the mature cherry trees that are healthy coming out. And I think that's a really positive compromise.
Okay, so I'll tell you what we can do today, because clearly, there's members of the public here, and our primary concern is safety, is everyone's safety. We need to continue to remove that tree today, but we'll do no more today because there's members of the public around, and I understand the concerns that have been raised. So we will not continue with any more of the work today. I'm afraid I can't make any other promises.
Well, let's go
because this scheme has been consulted, and it's been developed over a period of time, hasn't it? So I'm not going to make any other promises today about it. But what I will say is, once that tree is down and safe, that's all we'll do today, and then.
But that means we've got to
next
come
steps
back
after
tomorrow
that.
because we're not going to allow any more trees to come out, Mike.
Okay, well,
so
okay, and that's your prerogative.
Let's move one stage further, because none of us are going to leave and allow that tree to be cut unless you can give us a guarantee. You might have to ring somebody further up the food chain.
The situation
I listen to you, you need to listen to me.
That tree is not safe now because
make it safe by surround it.
Mike, what I'm saying is, we're not saying not take that tree out, but I need you to give me further undertakings. I've tried to ring Rick, I've tried to ring Ash, I've tried to ring Emma, who's the project lead. What I want you to do is give us a guarantee that by the end of this week we get together. That will allow that tree to be taken down. It will upset us, but no further trees are taken down until we're able to come together, so that the views of the residents who elected me and pay your salary are taken into consideration. Because the anger in the community is getting worse and worse. So we need to do something about stopping that. Otherwise, you're just going to come back tomorrow or next week to cut a tree down, and we're going to be back here again, which is what none of us want.
So we're quite a long